all, Tony here from the OSC. Big welcome, because in today's growth workshop, we're going to be talking all about why you need growth and how you can achieve it. Now, the secret to scale and significant growth is not actually how many hours that you work. It's actually completely the opposite. It's in terms of what you need to do less of. And when I talk about that, if you want to really turn your business into a £1 million operation, you need to actually do less within the business. You need to put the processes in place so that they are repeatable, they're scalable, so that you can systemize everything and hire the right people to do the job for you. And to help you do that, we're going to break down the parts of running an arbitrage business that actually no one is currently talking about, and they will take place. All of that information will be within these growth workshops. So what are we going to look at? We're going to look at obviously why you need growth and why it's key to do that. Now we're going to look at metrics, how they can help, what you need to use within your business, what you need to know about metrics, and which ones also that you don't need to worry about. We'll look at the tools and software that you need to have in place now and also as you grow your team. We'll look at organisation in terms of systems and processes, and also team building, and then the management of those team members. Now, these are the foundations that are sustainable and what a business is actually built on. These are what are going to make it a success or a failure. Now, obviously, we want to make sure that it is a success as you go through the motions and you put these new processes and these new implementations in place. Now, the key thing is for you to understand and identify and problem solve within our daily life. We come across problems and issues that we need to problem solve, and it's exactly the same in business, and it's critical in you delivering sustained growth and also profitability. This is what it's all about. We're not in business running an arbitrage business to make a few pounds here and there, or we need to make sure we're making a profit, but how do you scale that? Where do you start and how do you scale it? And in the current time of the economic crisis that we're currently going in, you need to be more innovative, you need to be efficient, you need to be cost effective, you need to have cost effective solutions in place, and they need to become an integral part of the evolution, let's say, of your business. Small business owners are struggling. We're seeing that across the board with the pandemic, and it's really important for you to find solutions to challenges so that the issues that you're facing now in your business, that if they happen again, you can quickly nip them in the bud. But also, the more you do it, the more you problem solve, the better you become, the quicker you become more consistent, you become more knowledgeable, and that information is really about you kind of learning from experiences. I can tell you everything you need to do, but also it's very important that you need to experience it at the same time, so that you can actually then build out your systems, your processes, and empower your team to take the initiative to follow those systems, but also to empower them to take the initiative to think for themselves too. And quite simply, it's because we're doing too much. Have you ever felt where you're overwhelmed, where there's too much to-dos or on your list for that particular day, and that you go through everything that you need to do and you find that actually you kind of haven't done anything because you've been focused too heavily on one thing that's taken up all of your time, or alternatively that you've only got half of your things done on your to-do list for that day, and you feel really deflated because you wanted to get it all done. It's really about making sure that you are not putting too much on your plate, that you are absolutely laser focused on one thing at a time, systemize it, build the processes out. But first, before we kind of go into that, and we'll talk a lot more about that throughout these growth workshops, one thing I wanted to say is it's so important to make sure that you've built a solid foundation for the business to sit on and obviously for you to scale from. It's just like a house, really. It needs to have a really good set of solid foundations in order for it to stay standing and weather the tide in terms of bad weather, wear and tear, etc. And you need to have exactly the same approach in your business, because if you don't, just like a house with bad foundations, it could end up looking something like this. Now, you need to have a solid foundation, and that is built up of 3 fundamental building blocks that basically make the difference between building an extraordinary business or building a mediocre one. And the 3 fundamental building blocks for you to follow within your business are strategy, are systems, and our leadership. So write that down: strategy, systems, and leadership. So let's go into kind of what each of those are. And these are, as I said, the 3 core building blocks to a solid foundation within your business. Now, the first one is strategy. This is the core foundation. This is really important, and what you need to make sure that you're investing a bit of time into now if you haven't done already, because a strong, coherent strategy lies at the heart of every successful business. That's really important. A clear strategy that will give you the certainty of kind of knowing where you want to be and how you're going to get there. And you need that with anything that you're doing within your business. Now, no strategy is going to work if you're winging it. Been there, done that. You need to be an opportunist, not a strategist here. You don't need to be strategic. You need to make sure that you've got a solid strategy in place. You know what you're doing. You know where you're going, because you can only hope with luck from your business that it will be successful if you're winging it. So have a moment now to kind of think about what that is and write it down. And if you haven't got time today to do that, make sure you do that before you move on to the second one, because the second one is all about systems. Now, this is a supporting building block, if you like, to the core, which is strategy. So you need to put the right systems and the processes that slot within those systems in place, so that your business can run efficiently, so it can run effectively, without you actually physically being in it every day. I know that sounds really, but without you being in it, it can run as long as you've got third parties and team members to kind of do it. But you need to have the systems and processes in place to be able to take a step back from the business and actually lead it rather than working in it. And this is where there's a fine line, and a lot of people struggle with it. They feel that they need to work really, really, really hard in their business, work all day, 12, 13, 14 hours a day, and do it all themselves. And actually, they're going to be no greater. They're going to scale no greater. There's going to be a level, or a ceiling, should I say, of where they're going to get to, and they're going to plateau. So it's really important to not be the only one that knows what needs to be done in your business. And when you're doing things, save time and be efficient, and document those with a simple video, because over time you're going to build out your systems so that your team members, as you grow your team, can then take them on. Now, your business is never too small, or it's never too young to start systemizing it. Remember that. If you're 18 months, 3 years even into this business, it's never too late to start systemizing. If you've just started, start now, because you're going to be ahead of the game and do it a lot quicker and scale a lot quicker if you follow these processes as well. You need to also make it work for you so that you can stay in control rather than the business controlling you. And I know that kind of sounds pretty simple, but a lot of people kind of forget that. And the third core building block is leadership. So this is another supporting building block to the strategy block that we said earlier. Now, this is about you, and actually it's about your mindset, and about you standing at the helm of the business and being in control of kind of where you're going. So kind of going back to that strategy, and actually how you're going to get there. Because if it's just you, yes, you can lead yourself, but there is an array of overwhelming list of tasks that need to be done. As you grow your team, you need to become that leader, to direct that team member, that team of people in the right direction while still potentially working on other areas of the business until you step out of those roles and you can oversee it completely and take on that full leadership role. Because without you there is kind of no strategy, and your business will limp along kind of directionless. So make sure that you write these down. So strategy, systems, and leadership. So remember, also with leadership, it's all about kind of not only just leading your team, but also leading yourself as well, and looking after your mindset on a daily basis. So they're the 3 building blocks. When working well within the business, you're definitely going to get vital certainty and also control too that you require. So what's the solution to growth? I mean, I think, as I said, in this economic crisis, I suppose, if we want to call it, or climate at the moment, you have to be innovative. You may need multiple streams of income, and I'm definitely one to kind of suggest that. But make sure that if you're working in a strategy in a specific business at the moment, make sure you focus on systemizing that first and you become that leader within that role, within that business, before you are looking for that next shiny penny. Because otherwise, if you're doing too much and you're spinning too many plates at one time, you're going to do a bit here, a bit there, and a bit over there, and you're never going to completely accomplish everything that you want to within the time frame that you want to, and you're potentially not going to be able to scale as quickly, if at all, actually, within those areas. So bear that in mind. Now, whether you're looking, as I said, at new strategies to increase your sales revenue, so we're talking strategies within the arbitrage business, so different ways of listing products, different ways of sourcing products, wholesale, for example, arbitrage, OA, RA, all different strategies. Whether you're looking to kind of manage your cash flow, you need to obviously identify the inefficiencies in the operations that you're currently doing, and also look to kind of motivate and inspire those that are actually working for you or working with you at the moment. Now, arguably, the most effective solution to growth is hiring a team of virtual assistants and training them up so that they become experts within the field, within this sector that they're working on within your business, and also over time allowing you to then actually take your freedom back to have more time on your side. Now, there are 4 key stages that you need to be aware of in order to achieve real change in your business. And also that you can then look to develop your team over time, but also train them up in those 4 areas as well. Now, what business issues are currently present in your organization, in your company? Have a think about that for a moment. What are the issues that you're seeing on a kind of maintenance, I suppose? Look at maintenance and growth. So maintenance, day-to-day tasks that you're having to do at the moment, but what are the issues that you're experiencing? For example, if you're using a prep center and you're ordering from supermarkets, this is used to be the bane of our lives, and we would have issues where duplications would be sent instead of the products that we wanted. We would have issues where, for example, items were turning up damaged because they weren't in carrier bags. So we're having lots of issues specifically with supermarket deliveries to the prep center. So if you're having the same problems, how can you kind of overcome those? How do you identify them? And how do you overcome those problems? Because, as I said earlier, it's all about problem solving. The more that you can look to systemize the maintenance tasks and the inefficiencies and put very strong problem solving processes in place for those things or those issues that occur, the quicker you can outsource them to someone else for them to deal with, following obviously your guidance that you've built out, the process that you've built, but also actually finding the root cause and nipping it in the bud at the source, so that actually the occurrence reduces significantly to that issue reoccurring. There is would you believe, a solution to every problem, near enough. There is a solution. It's just about you going through those experiences, learning what that is, and developing it over time as well. Not one person has got every single answer, but having gone through various amounts of issues and experiences myself within the arbitrage business, it has made me I would say a very good problem solver, and that has then allowed me to build out the process so that my team can then take on those systems, those tasks, and also allowing them to feed back to me as well, so that if there is ever another issue that occurs, we quickly have a conversation and we build out and we amend that process so that it, because things change. Amazon throws lots of hurdles every now and then. There's policy changes, so you need to obviously remain bulletproof, but also ensure that you're making changes to any process when it is warranted and when it needs to be as well. So let's have a look at the 4 stages, or the 4-stage strategy framework that you can utilize in order for you to thoroughly analyze and pinpoint the strengths and weaknesses of the business currently, and through these growth workshops, hopefully with clear guidance that I provide you, how to analyze what you're doing well, and also what actions that you need to take to streamline them as well. So the first one is identify. So you need to identify what the problem is. The second one is understand. The third one is take action. And the fourth one is support. So use this whenever an issue occurs, and build a program so that your team members can do exactly the same. So whenever they have an issue, rather than coming directly to you because you're busy, unless it's an absolutely urgent issue, you want to get them to identify and at least come to you with a solution, rather than you having to firefight lots of different messages that are coming through from your team members. That's just going to take more time off your it's going to take more time for you to administer and obviously for you to tackle. And the whole purpose of this is scaling the business and obviously reducing your time on the day-to-day kind of maintenance areas that are needed. So identify the issues you're facing. Understand the challenges that are ahead and are in relation to what you've identified. Action the steps that you need to take within your business to face the problems, but also to resolve them, and also potentially what you can do now to then mitigate them happening again. And the final one is support. So support through the progress you've made, making that change, that implementation, ensuring that you have a solid support structure in place so that you can guide yourself through that if it's just you at the moment, or any third parties you're working with, but also your team members if you've got them in situ at the moment. But ultimately, if you start doing this now and you're then looking to build your team afterwards, you're going to have that in place ready to go. Now, the framework is designed, as I said, to help you clearly see the problems in your business that they're facing, but also the sectors from start to finish, so that you can then take decisive action, and also to help you achieve dynamic change going forward, because it's a lot easier to change something or tweak something if it's in place, rather than building it out from scratch or completely redesigning it. So let's take a working example. So I've taken an example that we used to have to deal with, which we've completely near enough eradicated now. We used to have this issue regularly on a daily basis as we were going through our stock and our inventory and repricing strategy. And the issue is we can't win the buy box because Amazon is on the listing. So who listening in has had this issue? Who's experiencing this issue now? We've had it. We still get it sometimes, but not as consistent as what we used to. And it's easy to get frustrated when Amazon shows up on a listing that you're currently holding inventory for and completely drops the price. They notoriously drop their prices to obviously keep the buy box and retain it for themselves, or completely don't share it at all. And as I said, it does depend on the stock, the category, and what you're going to do about it. It depends on kind of how much stock you've got available and what capital you've injected into that line that you've currently got active stock of. But competing with Amazon isn't usually that fruitful, but it can be done, and you might find yourself in a price war with them, or you may have found yourself having to kind of drop the price. You go a penny under, or you price match, and then you look again, and then they've dropped the price. And unfortunately, sometimes you can't win against the big boss. You can on some occasions. So I'm sure you can kind of resonate with this issue that we've identified. And let's break it down into the 4 steps that I showed you earlier, using the framework, so that you can help to resolve this issue, and then actually put a process in place that you and your team members can follow going forward. So the first one is obviously identifying the issue. Now the issue is we can't win the buy box on the stock that we've got in inventory at the moment. So let's say that you've run an inventory report, and you found you've got X amount of units across various product lines where it's just not moving whatsoever. Now you might have an initial strategy there that would come into play with your pricing strategy, where you would drop the price after a certain period of time and then wait to see if it shifts, and then take a second step. But what I want to do is kind of identify the root cause. If this is happening consistently, and you've got a lot of stock and a lot of inventory that is gathering dust in the fulfillment centres for months, that is your hard-earned money, you've invested money in that, and it's not going anywhere, that's a real issue. Because if you continue to buy stock like that, you're not going to get those sales in from that product. You've got capital that is tied up, you've got fees coming out from Amazon's side because they're charging you for monthly storage. You can't potentially buy new stock, let's say, because money is stuck within that stock. And if you're not taking any decisive action on it, ideally nothing's going to happen until you take action and you identify what the situation is at hand, but then also build out that process to then try and mitigate against this happening going forward. So identifying what the issue is. The next thing is to kind of understand why it's happening. So why are they not sharing the buy box? Is it because, for example, and just before we kind of identify why they're not sharing the buy box, look back at when you were sourcing it. So who was sourcing it? Was it you? Was it a deal service? You're still potentially yourself, or your purchasing team are still shortlisting that and analysing it before going to purchase. But for example, you might have a rule where you are actually fine with reselling stock that Amazon is on the listing for. Obviously, I'm hoping and that you are checking it, that they are sharing the buy box. But if you are wanting to resell stock where Amazon is active and on the listing at the time of you sourcing that product, have you gone back through the historic data to see the consistency of the buy box share? Because that's really important. If you're just looking in the last month, the last 3 months, for example, say, oh yeah, okay, Amazon's on the listing, they've been on the listing for that period of time, and yeah, they're sharing. They might have just started sharing. You might have accidentally only looked at the last month or the last week, or your sourcing team may have made a slight mistake, and your sourcing criteria might not be on point enough to be really specific about that. If you are going to delve into stock where Amazon is on the listing, yes, they need to share the buy box, but also you need to have a look at a longer time frame, a wider time frame, so that you can see the consistencies and the inconsistencies in terms of, are they going out of stock or not? How often was the buy box rotating between a third party seller as well as Amazon? Because if they've only been sharing for the last month, and there's history where they've been on the listing hogging it for the last 2 years, you shouldn't be investing your stock. You shouldn't be investing your capital within that stock, in my book. So it's really understanding kind of why they're not sharing, and going back to basics and making sure that you're building out a more robust and tighter criteria, so that when you or your sourcing team and your review and purchaser, if you've got one, is making sure that they're ticking the boxes off to ensure all of those analysis checks are done, so that ultimately you don't have stock going into the fulfillment center that you then can't move. Now, we haven't got a crystal ball in terms of Amazon jumping on the listing if they're not already on it. But over the time and the historic data of looking at that product and the brands, you can start to build a picture as to kind of whether they will or they won't. And Keeper, there's other obviously data tools that you can utilize to make a very good and strong decision as to whether they will or they won't, whilst not being able to guarantee it. But at the same time, you can do what we do, and the action being to obviously reprice or liquidate that stock and get it out as quickly as possible, get your money out as quickly as possible, so that you can reinvest it back into the business. There's no point in leaving stock in there if it's not shifting. You can obviously look at to fulfill it on another platform through Amazon, or completely remove it and try and sell it elsewhere to get your money back. You could potentially drop the price to break even or at a slight loss. We've done that a few times, specifically where Amazon was on the listing and just they weren't budging in terms of price. But also at the same time, it's not just about dealing with the issue now, because if you don't put a more robust process in place, it's going to happen again. And this is why we're using this as an example. So what's the action that you need to take now, but also what do you need to do now to ensure that this doesn't happen again? And quite simply, my suggestion would be, first and foremost, there are millions of products out there across lots of different categories that you can resell. You don't have to sell products where Amazon is active on the listing currently, just because it might look like a good buy, or you might be struggling for deal sourcing at the moment. There are other ways and means that you can get great viable deals coming into your business. So I would suggest, actually, for the first rule being for you and your sourcing team, to ensure that you're looking for deals where Amazon aren't live and active on the listing. Unless you're going to do a really quick flip whereby they've just gone out of stock, it's a great price, you know you can get it in quick and get it sold, but there is a potential, as I said earlier, that they could come back on. That's a slightly different strategy. But if we're looking for stock that you want to turn into replenishables, ideally you don't want to have Amazon on the listing. And I'd be very explicit about that to the sourcing team, because they're the ones that need to obviously shortlist the deal, find the deals and shortlist them for you first. And then ultimately it's the purchaser who makes the final decision in terms of shortlisting all the deals that are coming into the company and making that final decision and doing the quick checks. So you need to build out a process and make sure that you're not only sure about what the steps are for yourself, and what the company needs to do, but also what the team members working within that process need to be aware of as well. Because if you don't, you're going to be losing money, and also your business isn't going to be working as efficiently. You're going to be called in to various different communication channels and feeding back, and wasting time on something that actually could be nipped in the bud straight away. Now, the last thing is support. So, as I said, build a rule and communicate that to the team. What are the absolute non-negotiables? And if you will allow Amazon on the listing, what is the criteria for that? It has to be no less than 110% ROI and £30 profit, or what specifically is that criteria? Because if you are going to allow it, you need to be specific so that your team can follow suit, and then communicate that to them effectively so they've got it available, so that if they need to refer to it quickly when they're doing their day-to-day job, they can get access to it. And provide a solid support structure to them so that if they have any queries, they can reach out to you. But also allow them, communication is a two-way channel. Make sure that you allow them to feed back to you as well, because actually they may have some really good suggestions. So if you do have an issue like this or something else within the business and you have a team member working right now, what are their issues and can you help support them to become more efficient, to resolve the situation, to build a better process that they can follow that makes them more efficient, more productive, and obviously maximizes the output that they're giving you as well. So have a think about that. Write down the issues that you're facing within the operations right now. And if you do need any help with regards to problem solving, you've got any problems, then feel free to reach out and we'll be able to kind of help give some solutions to any situation or experiences that match what we've been in as well. Cool. So it's time to take action. Go through and make sure that you implement any questions with answers that you've taken throughout this session. Ideally, what we want to achieve through these growth workshops is for you to maximize your business to the full efficiency that it can be run on, to ensure that we're increasing productivity levels, and also to ensure that you go through the entire series of the growth workshops and you implement all of the learnings as well. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or the OSC team, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.